Hi folks, so today I am going to do a live stream about using AI, and I'm going to show you something that I was playing around with, and it's going to be part of my podcast episode for next week. And so I've been using and playing around with AI quite a bit. I use AI every day. I use ChatGPT. And one of the things that I did last week was I wrote an AI usage policy because I want to put that on my website and I want to put that in books and on any content that I create. Just be really transparent about how much I'm using it and how I use it specifically so that people understand. I also want to differentiate and stand out from a lot of the AI generated crap that you see. And I want to show people that that's not what I'm about. I'm not about generating an entire booklets and books and things and just putting it up on Kindle. I think a lot of people are doing that in order to kind of generate content. And I don't think that that's the right way we should be using AI. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to just show you, and I have a video here. So this is in my video editor, and I actually generated a video, and so you can see here on my screen, you can see that there's two people in the video editor. There's an image of a black and white kind of news presenter, and then there's a video of me. And when I create all of this video and put it out, you'll be able to find this next week. And you'll be able to listen to the video. You'll be able to listen to the podcast episode on my podcast, The Recognized Authority. This video, part of this is an interview between a radio interviewer, a fake interviewer that I created, and me. And the person answering the questions, all of those answers have been generated with AI based on my inputs. And I'm going to show you now how I did that. The other thing about this is actually video. So I'll just hit play just to show you there is movement on screen here. So you can see that those people are actually moving on the screen. You can see their faces and their mouths moving as they speak. Okay, so here's how I did that. And I'm going to show you, I'm not going to go into the details of the tool. The tool that I used for the video part is called HeyGen. The tool that I used for the audio part is called 11 Labs. And those are tools that you can use to generate content, video and audio content from text. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to show you how I created the text part. And so one of the things that's quite interesting is that the interview that was generated, the questions are all really good, and the actual answers that it gave are probably 95% accuracy for what I might actually say myself. And I found that really interesting. So let me just talk you through, and there are people listening to this who don't see the video, so I'm just going to talk you through what you're seeing here. So the first thing that I did, and I decided to change the gender of the interviewer because I couldn't find a good voice, so I found a male voice that I want to use. But I originally called the interviewer Rachel. And so I said to a tool called Claude, which is like ChatGPT, I said, I want you to create an interview transcript for an interview between me, Alistair McDermott, and Rachel, the interviewer, who is a veteran expert interviewer and an entrepreneur who hosts a business talk show on Saturday mornings. Now, a couple of things, I just want to talk about why I said those things. So I wanted to make it clear that the person is a veteran expert interviewer because I wanted it to be a good interview, and I wanted it to be as if it was a really good interviewer who was asking those questions. But I also wanted it to be light, and I wanted to describe it as a business talk show because I've heard some of those kind of talk shows on Saturday mornings where it's an interesting talk show, but the interviewer doesn't grill the person they're interviewing. They don't put them on the spot too much. It keeps it light and just kind of fluffy, kind of high level overview. And I found like that's kind of what I was trying to go for here. I didn't want to get too deep on something. So I said, write an interview, entire conversation, both sides, for a 10 to 15 minute interview, approximately 10,000 to 12,000 words. Make it flow naturally. Now, one of the things about all of the AI tools is they do find it difficult to generate large output. And so I'm asking for a lot. When I say 10 to 15 minutes of an interview or 10,000 words, that's a lot to be asking the AI to produce. And I said, make it flow naturally. I wanted to make sure that the questions flow side to side. So below are some of the questions you might use, but please rewrite them to make it flow. So I have some questions here that I was giving it as suggestions. And I'll show you where I got those questions from. But I did mention that I wanted it to reflow those because what happens is when somebody's being interviewed, the interviewer changes the next question depending on what the previous answer was. So they don't just robotically go through the list of questions. So I wanted to rewrite the questions to make it flow more and make it sound like a real conversation. And so I'll just show you where I got those questions from. So I got these questions, generated them in ChatGPT, and you'll see I'm switching back and forth. I go back and forth between ChatGPT and Claude for different things. And Claude is very similar to ChatGPT, except it can take larger inputs, which is important in a minute. You'll see why. So in ChatGPT, I said, you are an expert interviewer in the B2B professional services space. You are going to interview an author about his use of AI in creating content like blog posts and books that are created to build authority and personal brand. So basically, you're interviewing me, and you're going to be interviewing about the use of AI. So I said, give me 12 questions you might ask him. Make the questions flow in a natural order where the answer from one might lead to the next question. Just give the questions as a numbered list and write them in natural language. And so ChatGPT has given me 12 questions here. So I have taken, copy paste these into Claude in my request here in Claude. Now the reason why I find that ChatGPT tends to give me better output on the most part, but Claude is better at taking larger input. So that's why I go back and forth between the two. The second, going back to Claude, I said, write the entire interview conversation, and here's some of the questions. So I said, the following text is in 3 parts. Part 1 is a list of the questions. Part 2 is my AI usage policy that I created for my website. And so I've got the text of that because this gives insight into what I think about AI. So this is helping it to create an interview that is realistic based on me. And then the third, part 3, is my side of the conversation from one of my podcasts where I discussed generative AI like ChatGPT. And so how I got that, so for every podcast episode that I put up on the Recognized Authority, there is a transcript. And that transcript is automatically generated in a tool called Otter. And so what I did was, I'm just going to look for Frank, because Frank was the other person in the episode. So let's see if I can find Frank's episode here. And so what we did, so here's the ChatGPT episode. This was a conversation I had with Frank. And so this is the entire transcript of that. So what I did was I took the output, I took this transcript, and I want to use my side of this as an input to the conversation because I wanted to create an interview with me. So what I did was I took that transcript and I gave that, and I have another window here. I don't have it open, so I won't show it, but I had a chat window, and I said, please pull out my side of this conversation only and give it back to me. And so it gave me my side of the conversation only. So that's where this part 3 came from. So now here's all of the inputs into this conversation. So the first thing is we've set up that it's an interview transcript for an interview between me and this radio interviewer, and it's going to be like a fairly light, high level business talk show type. And we have the input, which is the questions, and then my AI usage policy, because that gives insight into how I use AI, and then my side of the conversation from where I talked to Frank about 2 or 3 months ago. And so that also included a lot of my thoughts on how I use AI. And so all of that is input here into this. And then the rest of this prompt is just all of that. So there's my AI policy, and then here is all of the text. So what this gave us as output is this 10 to 15 minute interview between Rachel and Alistair McDermott. And then we have the text here. Welcome to the show. It's great to have you on. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to chat. And that's what you just heard or saw if you're watching or listening to the podcast episode. So that's all of our text now, our text input. So the next step then, and by the way, this output here, it's definitely not 10 to 15,000 words, and it's not, I think it's about 6 minutes long. So the output is much shorter than, but you could say, let's go again. I think when I was experimenting with this, I said, I came back the next week and had a further conversation. Please write the transcript of that conversation. And it's able to generate more that way, so you can end up with longer output. So that's how I got the text of the interview. The next thing then was to take 11 Labs, which is a tool that takes text input. And what I did was I trained it on my voice. So let's see if I can find over here 11 Labs. And so what I was able to do with this was I was able to record some recordings, I think of 60 seconds each. And I think I did 5 or 6 of them and asked for. And then it clones my voice based on that. And this is a bit creepy. Like the sound of it, it doesn't sound quite like you. It also gave me a bit of an American accent, and I think they're getting better now. I see different kind of accents or multilingual and things like that are being added to this. But this tool can then generate the audio. And so what I did was I generated the audio with this, and the other tool that I used then, and I used this for my side of the conversation, and then I was playing around with different voices to get the interviewer, and that's when I decided to change from Rachel, which was the name of the original interviewer, a female. I found a male voice I thought would be quite good, and then when I was playing around, I wanted to make a video element to it, and I found a kind of like an old black and white kind of 60s American talk show avatar that I used to create the video for that. So that's where that whole interview came from. I was able to kind of stitch all those pieces together, and that created this interview. Now, the interesting thing is the interview is actually really good. Like it's pretty much like I would answer those questions. There are only 1 or 2 sections of it that are not exactly as I would answer, but I would say 95% it's accurate for what I would say. Probably the most inaccurate is the shortness of the answers. I would probably take maybe 2 or 3 minutes answering some of those questions, whereas it gave like a 15 or 25 second answer. So I would be a bit more wordy with that. So yeah, that is how I actually created the interview and created the video of the interview. The video is a bit creepy, so if you check it out, you can have a look. I do have some notes on the video about what to look out for, lip sync issues, but you note that the head is moving when the rest of the image or the rest of the body doesn't kind of move naturally. But it's like this is the worst that AI is ever going to be. Everything that we see today, it's only going to get better and better. I think it's going to be a long time before AI generated video, at least on a mass scale, is something that humans would not recognize as computer generated. I think we're a long way from that. I think that there's just too many different cues and ticks that show that something is not a real live human. So, okay, that's just explaining the interview and how I generated that. And I think it's kind of an interesting experiment, but it's not how I actually use AI on a day-to-day basis. So I thought that I would show you a little bit about that as well, because I think that's interesting. And the biggest thing that I use AI for is probably reformatting text and turning text into lists and brainstorming and things like that. So I'm going to show you over here. Okay, first thing, in order to promote this live stream, I wanted to create an event description. So the first thing, here's a simple prompt. I need a title and an event description for a live stream to my audience where I demo how I used AI to create an entire text, audio, and video interview with an expert. I will also show some advanced use of ChatGPT and Claude to increase productivity, brainstorm, and reformat text inputs. So these prompts that you write are super important. And one other thing that I do that you may or may not know about is there's a thing in ChatGPT which are called custom instructions. I'm just going to show you what my custom instructions look like. So there's 2 questions in custom instructions. What would you like ChatGPT to know about you to provide better responses? And the second question is, how would you like ChatGPT to respond? And so I say my target audience consists of subject matter experts, executives, business leaders, consultants aged 40 to 65 in the B2B consulting sector. Their primary goal is to amplify their visibility and solidify their authority. Despite their vast experience, they grapple with content creation challenges and aim to break beyond their local networks. They're active on LinkedIn and regular podcast listeners. The main key points are lead generation, inbound marketing, messaging, positioning, content creation. And so I put in there, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but my content pillars cover establishing, leveraging authority, personal brand development, podcasting, content strategy, social media, content marketing tactics. So I have this filled out to give ChatGPT context so that I don't have to give the context in every single conversation. That's why I have that. Then the other thing is, how would you like ChatGPT to respond? So I now, this is something that doesn't work so well unless I tell you otherwise. Always follow these rules. The unless I tell you otherwise, giving ChatGPT negative instructions, it tends not to follow those negative instructions. It doesn't follow that very well. But I have given it the rules, so it tends to apply these all the time. No filler or fluff, write in a direct, concise writing style, give actionable advice, avoid hyperbole or sounding hyperbolic, avoid losing these words whenever you can. Family, fam, delve, thrive. I find that it overuses a lot of these kind of words. And so this is so in terms of success. But it's, I want to give it these instructions, and then I have my tone of voice. The voice should be conversational, personal, open, engaging, as if the author speaks directly to the reader using first-person pronouns. Vocabulary should be simple and accessible. Make the text easy to read for a range of readers. Use varied sentence structure. So I'm telling it how I want it to write the output, and this is very much how I write. And so one of the ways that I got it to, I asked it to analyze some of my text and tell me how I write. And so then I can describe it back to it. And so I have a spreadsheet over here, which is, this is like a kind of a prompts, text prompts that I copy paste. And I have a bunch of different ones in here. Analyze the writing style of the above author and write about the topic in a similar way. You could also do analyze the writing style of this author and tell me how to describe it. You can get that feedback. So I gave it some other instructions here, and it sometimes follows these and it sometimes does not. I ask it to add an opening hook. So open the piece with a hook that touches on a relatable challenge, promises tangible value, or starts with an engaging question. So this is really important in all of your social media content and in all of your content, really. You want to hook people from the start. It's a bit like the cold open on TV shows. Do you ever see the start of Breaking Bad? It's Walter White standing in his underwear with a gun in the middle of the desert and with a gas mask on his head, and you can hear sirens coming from over the hill in the distance. And that's the very first thing you see in the entire series of Breaking Bad, and it just piques your interest, and then it cuts to 24 hours earlier or whatever it is. And so it's the same with films, like movies like any of the movies like Fight Club. There's a guy tied to a chair at the top of a skyscraper, and then there's bombs or whatever. And so, it's all about grabbing attention, and that's what your opening hook is. So I would suggest that you use opening hooks in all of your content anyway. I think it's a really important thing to learn. And then closing with a call to action, adding a call to action. So I'm telling ChatGPT that I want it to do these things, and it's really good actually at following these two instructions. And you'll see that in some of the content I show you. So, okay. So I told ChatGPT for this particular stream, I said I need a title, event description for this, and I wanted to give me that, and then it's given me the title. You'll see that it's actually called out the opening hook. It's told me what the opening hook, that this is an opening hook, and then at the end it's got the call to action, CTA, and it's actually called that out as well. So this is interesting that it's marking those out. So it is following the instructions when I give it that. So that's one way that I use ChatGPT in using those custom instructions to make the output more kind of effective and not have to repeat yourself time after time. Now, the other thing that I use it for a lot is I use it for brainstorming. And I'm not sure, let's see what I have here, because I have some older conversations. I'll see which ones might be useful. So one of the things that you'll notice when I'm writing prompts for ChatGPT is almost always the first thing I want it to do is act like, and I tell it to act like an expert in a certain field, quite often a B2B marketing copywriter. So I said here, act like a B2B a B2B marketing copywriter with huge experience in helping writers publish successful books on Amazon. First, I want you to help me rename this book. I want you to give me a catchy book title, suggestions in the form of title, longer subtitle. Use the term super practical guide in 10 of the title suggestions and give me 15 others. Here's the working title, and I gave it the working title of one of my books or my booklets, and this is information about it. So I've given it lots of input. I've told it how to act. I've told it what I wanted to do and the exact format that I want the output. And then here's the kind of the more context. And that's where it starts to give. Now, this is how I use it for brainstorming, because now I'll look at these and see, do I like any of those? And you can call out by number, hey, I like number 3 and number 7. Can you give me variations on those, or can you merge those and see? So, and then it's given me gave me what I asked, it gave me some other options as well. So that is, so I said, give me 10 variations on this, because now I'm iterating. So that's the thing here is iterating on the previous output. And now I tend to go in a very iterative process when I'm following with ChatGPT. So I say, give me 10 variations on this, concentrating on switching up the subtitle only. And I gave it, and it's given me more. So that's how I use it to get ideas and to kind of iterate and get more ideas. Now, there is another thing that you can do, which is quite interesting for brainstorming. And so I'm going to pick, let me pick a topic. Okay, I'm going to pick value-based pricing. So it's an interesting topic. I've interviewed Jonathan Stark. I've interviewed Christo, Alan Weiss, and then the grandfather of value pricing, Ron Baker. And I've interviewed all of those on my show, on the Recognized Authority. They are all experts in their field, so I know those. So I'm going to ask ChatGPT, please. So I'm going to say, I am inviting. I'm going to give it the list. So Jonathan Stark, Christo. Who else did I say? Ron Baker. Alan Weiss, to a panel discussion on value pricing. So I'm going to say there's also 2 special guests with expertise in this field. So I'm actually doing this live now. That's why it's a little bit slow here, but bear with me. So the prompt I'm giving it is, I'm inviting Jonathan Stark, Christo, Ron Baker, and Alan Weiss to a panel discussion of value pricing. There's also 2 special guests with expertise in this field. They have a heated conversation on how best to apply value pricing to let's pick this. Let's pick something. Let's say to in a business in the context of selling. Let's say business coaching services. Please write the transcript of their conversation. Now this is an interesting one. So what it's doing is it's picking up from everything that it's learned in its database. It's picking up everything that it knows, and it's stitching together what might Jonathan Stark and Christo and Ron Baker and Alan Weiss's perspectives be on this topic. And it's kind of auto kind of prompting or projecting what those could be. It's trying to figure out who else might be people who would have an input on this. And then it's realized, okay, so if I said heated conversation, then it's got to have somebody disagreeing with somebody else. So what might be the kind of the polarizing sides of an argument? And then it's applying all of that context to business coaching. And so it's going to come up with some really interesting ideas for us here. And so now I found this, like, I'm not going to use this verbatim, but what I might do is I might use this to give me ideas about a blog post that I might want to write. about value pricing, or maybe about business coaching. I'm using it as input. So and so here we've got right. So Jonathan is talking about understanding the client's problem so deeply you can offer a transformative solution. Chris comes in about positioning as an authority. Ron is talking to us about outcomes. So special guest 1, special guest 2. So I didn't name them. I should have told it I wanted them to name. So let's see. Who were the special guests? Let's just see. And then let's see. Let's assume the special guests are Blair Enns, brilliant, and Jody Grundon. Okay. So now we have some people. So now we know about, like, these are possibly the top people in this space that might be worthwhile. So now I'm gonna say, let's say, so Perry Marshall, who's also a kind of a consultant or an expert, a marketing expert. Perry Marshall chimes in from the audience, and again, and makes an interesting point. What did he say? Okay, so I'm saying to ChatGPT now. So Perry Marshall was pretending Perry Marshall was in the audience. He makes an interesting point. So what did he say? And so he comes in and talks about the 80-20 principle. So you're all talking about value positioning outcomes, but don't forget about the 80-20 principle, which is absolutely something Perry Marshall might say. And so this is interesting now because this gives us some ideas. So, okay, so if we're writing about value pricing, should I think about 80-20 principle and bringing that in? So what this does is this I just use this as a brainstorming tool to give me ideas. Now, let's say I want to turn this. I'm going to pretend that I want to turn this into a blog post. I'm not actually going to use this as a blog post, but I'm just going to use this as an example of how I might turn this into a blog post. So I'm going to say, take the entire previous conversation, and turn it into a detailed blog post outline. And so it's now creating this in the context, remember, of my custom instructions for my audience. It's using that. So I told it to stop generating there because it started talking about the panel discussion. So ignore. So I'm going to change my input and say ignore the fact that it was panel. Don't mention that or the people. Just include the insights from the conversation. Okay, so I've realized that the output that it's giving me isn't quite what I want, so I'm going back and editing the what I've given it already and asking it to change that. So now it's going to give me, and it's given, according to my custom instructions, it's giving me an opening hook, and then it's starting to give me the outline. Section 1, understand the client's problem. Section 2, talking about positioning. Section 3, focusing on outcomes, aligning interests, shifting the conversation from cost to value. Okay, so now I could say, okay, now write the first 500 words, including section 1 to 3. So now I'm telling it to start actually writing the content. And so this output now is going to be a bit better because you've given it a lot of inputs and you're kind of molding it. Now, I still wouldn't be happy with this. I also will almost never include introductions and conclusions in the way that it does. It gets very formal in the way that it does that. That's not my personal writing style, but that is something that ChatGPT will almost always output. But it's interesting to see how it gives us gives us some things here like action steps, and the output here is actually pretty good. This output is way better than if I had just launched into, I want you to write me a blog post. about value pricing in the context of business coaching. So the output here is going to be far superior to that. So now what you can do is you can do other things with that. So one example would be write that in the form of a 10-page linked carousel document for LinkedIn. So you'll notice that I'm not giving it the act as instructions. Oh, it's going and checking Canva because I have Canva turned on. So it's giving me some templates as well. And it's going to show those. So it's giving me the templates here from Canva. Now I didn't ask it for those, but I guess I must have said some trigger words for that Canva plugin. The Canva plugin is not great for ChatGPT. What it does is it just searches the templates in Canva. But I guess that's useful. But what I want to know now is it going to forget the rest of my so let's say I'm going to tell it use the first one. This is the first time I've been using that. So here's how the content would be structured in a 10-page LinkedIn carousel. Now it's giving me the actual content. So the cover page, it's giving me the cover, the title, the subtitle, the opening hook for page 2, the text for page 2, the text for page 3, page 4, page 5. And so it's giving me the text for these. And what it's done is I've got the blog post, and now it's giving me this. It's giving me this as a carousel. It's giving me the text for all the pages. So now, this reformatting is how I use ChatGPT and these tools, but typically the inputs that I give it are different. So quite often what I'll do is I'll actually narrate. I do this sometimes when I'm driving. I'll stick on record, and I will record while I'm driving about a particular topic. And so it could be a blog post, it could be some ideas for a book or for changing a book or something. And I'll record that in the Otter app, which is Otter that I showed you earlier on. It's the voice narration tool. And so I'll take some notes in there, some voice notes, and sometimes I'll actually write the ChatGPT prompt. I'll actually say that in my conversation that I'm recording. So I take that, and by the time, if I'm driving, by the time I get home, it's already been transcribed into text. So I'll take the text from Otter, and then I'll put that straight in to ChatGPT as the input. And if it's too long, because sometimes it's too long, I'll put it into Claude, and I'll give that as the input. And then the output that I'm going to get, it's actually based on my expertise and my knowledge. And so that means that the output's going to be far superior to kind of the generic, because what ChatGPT is doing to create the average content is it's giving you back the average of all of the knowledge that it's been trained on. And the databases that they've been trained on, they're not perfect. It's not the sum of all knowledge for the entire human race that some people think it is. It's not magic. It's a training database that has a lot of information in there, but it has biases in there, and it has incorrect information sometimes. So you have to be really careful about just using its input verbatim. But if you control the inputs more, and if you give it more input, what it's going to give you out is going to be much better because of that. So one of the other things that I did with Claude, because Claude can take more input. So let's see if I can find this here. I took the entire text for my book, 33 Ways Not to Screw Up Your Business Podcast. And I took the entire text of that and pasted that into Claude as text. So that is, I think it's 26,000 words, 30,000 words, something like that. I think I skipped the appendix and those sections. Oh no, I think I included those. Okay, so yes, literally the entire book text. And I said that this was when I was playing around. I was originally going to do an interview based on the author of the included book, me, and the interviewer that I talked about. And so I got it to write up an interview based on that. And we might use that some other time. I don't know. But all of that, those answers are generated from my book. And where I think this is going to be really interesting is when I, as an author, can give it all of the text of all of my books and all of my blogs and all of my social media posts, and then say, okay, here are some thoughts on this topic, and I want you to write a blog post based on everything that I've written. Now create something in my writing style and give me a detailed outline of that. Now that's going to be that's kind of the next level of this, but we're still a long way from that. And the ChatGPT is doing ChatGPT Enterprise, which is going to be allowing for a little bit of that, not just for an individual like me, but for a larger corporation where you can have these. Chris Do is doing something similar to this. So then there are other kind of ethical issues, like, for example, if I was to use as input the transcript of all of the text interviews that I've done, then I'm also including in that database, I'm including my guests' insights and information in there. And so the question is then, do I have the right to put that into there? And all sorts of, kind of moral issues around that. So that gets really interesting. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that you can do with ChatGPT and Claude, and I don't want to make this too long. So one of the last things that I want to show you is just the 2-part prompt. So, oh yeah, before I do that, just on how to write like yourself, I have given it instructions. So write like me, write in a direct, concise writing style and use the following tone, voice, vocabulary, and sentence structure and tailor it for the following target audience. So I say tone, conversational. It should convey a sense of openness. Voice should be personal and engaging, as if the author speaks directly to the reader using first-person pronouns and a narrative style. Vocabulary should be simple and accessible without technical jargon or overly complex terms. This makes the text easier to understand for a wide range of readers. Now, I got this from ChatGPT by inputting. I took a bunch of my text and I said, please tell me about the tone, voice, vocabulary, and sentence structure of the following author. And then I gave it my writing. I gave it like 5 blog posts, and it pulled back and told me what those look like. And then I said, okay, now please turn that into a prompt to help you to write in my style. So that's where that comes from. It still does not do it perfectly, but it's pretty useful. The other kind of more advanced one that I want to show you here is the 2-part prompt. And there's lots of different variations on this one. So I'm just going to show you how you might do it. So first thing is act as an expert in blah, and help me to create and whatever it is that you want. So act as an X expert and help me to create Y. I want you to help me brain dump and get all of the necessary information down and give me your response in 2 parts. And this is the key part of this and why it's interesting. Part 1 will be an updated list in the form of a table. You can do it in a table, whatever way you want to do that. The columns, you can give it, if you're asking for tables, you can give it columns and things like that. Part 2 of the response will be another question to help us further refine and update. Now this is really cool. You can use this for a lot of stuff. Sorry, the last part is keep asking questions until I tell you that all the items are fully up to date. Okay, I'm just going to show you how you could use this. And so I'm going to make this, so act as a productivity expert. I'm going to say act as a productivity expert and help me create a concisely written but complete to-do list. Okay. So I want you to help me brain dump and get all necessary information down. Give me a response in 2 parts. Part 1 of the response will be an updated to-do list, right? And part 2 of your response will be another question to help us further update the list. And keep asking questions. So I'm just using this to create a to-do list. I'm going to just make some stuff up for the purposes of this this show. So okay, because I've got custom instructions turned on, it's actually started to create this for me. So this is where sometimes you need to turn off those custom instructions. So I'm just going to copy paste that prompt again. I'm going to go in and I'm going to custom instructions. I'm going to say turn off, and now I'm going to do new chat, and now I'm going to use that again. So now what I'm doing is I'm asking ChatGPT to help me create a to-do list. So let's do a to-do list. So we're going to have 3 things. So please go ahead and list all the tasks that you think. So I'm going to say get milk at the shop. cook dinner, and record a podcast episode. Okay, so I've told it 3 things I need to do. So now it's told me it's going to start organizing these into a table. Now remember, this is the 2-part prompt. So it's given me part 1, it's given me my to-do list of my 3 things I need to do. Now part 2 is it's given me refinement questions. Do we have a specific recipe in mind? For the podcast episode, do you need to prepare a script? Are there any other tasks? So I need to invite a guest. I'm going to say I need to get spaghetti for the meal, and I'm going to say I need to get petrol. That's gas for the Americans in the audience. So now it's updated, because this is the 2-part prompt. The first part is it gives us the updated list, and so now it's what it's doing. It's giving me the full list back. Now there's 4 items on the to-do list: get milk, cook dinner, record a podcast, and get petrol. And so now it's asking me more questions about that. And so this 2-part prompt is really useful, because you can kind of use this as a brainstorming tool when you're creating content, or to do almost anything where you want to get stuff out of your head. And what it's doing is you're seeing the new updated list of items every time as you add more and more to it. Now, what I find with ChatGPT and any of these tools is, as the conversation goes on and the further you get from the initial prompt, the more degraded the possibility is of it getting stuff wrong, of it degrading its knowledge. I think it's to do with the token length, which is the amount of stuff it's able to hold in memory as you get further and further away from that initial in terms of the amount of text. So you could find that this only works, you might be able to use this only 8 times or 10 times or something like that, depending on what the list is. But it's a really useful way to kind of have that conversation where it's almost driving the conversation. And the key to that is the 2-part prompt. So you say part 1, so give me your response in 2 parts. Part 1 will be an updated output. And by the way, you can use this, it doesn't have to be a list. This could be an updated blog post, or it could be an updated event description. So part 1 is an updated whatever it is. And then part 2 will be another question to help us further update and refine. And then you tell it, keep asking questions until I tell you that everything's up to date. So that is super advanced in terms of ChatGPT prompting. I hope you find it useful. The other things that I've showed you here, I'm happy to, if you send me a message, I'm happy to share my prompts and things like that. I use this a lot. It's really important to control the quality by checking all the output and giving it as much input as you possibly can, so you're not relying on it generating stuff just from the database, because it's really poor at quality control, and it's really good at faking like it knows, at being confident that what it's giving you is correct. So you got to be really careful. So thanks for tuning in. I hope you found this one useful. If you're listening just the audio version, please do go check the video. I think you'll find some of the video, particularly the start where I showed the AI generated video. I think you'll find that interesting. So I'd love to get your feedback on this if you found it useful. If you found any of the AI prompts useful, please check those out. And I've also put up a bunch of stuff on Amazon in terms of my books and booklets, and some of those are free. So if you search my name on Amazon, have a look there, and you'll see some about content creation, getting quick wins from content, and some things like that. So yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in.